Alright, hi guys. We are going to, as a class, go over how to pick a couple variables in this data set, create a scatter plot, create a line of best fit, and also look at the correlation coefficient. So we're going to do all of that in Excel. This data sheet is inside the lesson for this, and so I want you to download it. And in order to mess with it, I think you're probably going to have to open it inside the Excel app, not the online version. If you have the actual app on your iPad, you'll have more functionality. So on both of what we're going to do as a class and the one that you need to choose on your own and answer questions for, we are going to compare car price as our dependent variable, and it's going to depend on some of the other factors that the car has. Now I went and I looked at like where this car came from and our car data set came from, and it's a couple years old. It might not be the best accuracy known to man, but for our purposes I wanted to use it so that I can show you how to work with Excel and get all those things that we talked about and kind of get an idea. This car name, this is just kind of arbitrary. If you want to look at specific car names, we're going to look at literally data as a whole. So our first thing is to create a scatter plot, and we need to tell it what sets of data we want to use. And we're going to, as a class, choose city miles per gallon, so that's how many miles per gallon you get per dollar basically to drive in the city, right? So the higher the number, the better, is for fuel economy at least. And then car price is our dependent variable. So in order to plot this, I need to hover over the entire column of D, and then you can either hide these middle ones, but since you're going to need it eventually, you want to hold the command button and hold that down, and then hover over the letter of the column H. Now when you go to do this on your own, you're going to choose either B, C, E, F, or G instead of D. And you're still going to choose H as your second, but you want to make sure that the one you choose for your choice one later on, that it's the first column that you choose, because that's going to be representing your X variables. And the second column you choose, again, holding down that command button while D is still highlighted, or whatever one that you're doing, and selecting the entire column so that it also is highlighted. Now up in the very top toolbar, we're going to go to Insert, Chart, XY Scatter. Okay, so Insert, Chart, XY Scatter. Now I could have also gone to it through this page. Because how big I have the screen, I can't read how. And you might be able to see these things better if you are more of a visual person. You can go in and actually see the kind of graphs, but I think it's easier just to be able to read from this top bar. So Insert, Chart, XY Scatter Plot, and it's going to plot my plot right in the middle of my data. Now if I drag that off to the side, I can do that. Get it out of the way. Couple things I want to change or add just so I have this set up right. I am going to change the title of this. Okay, so if I just click in it, we are comparing city miles per gallon and car price. So that's the title of my graph. I also want to label the axes here. So to do that, if I just click on the actual table, like if I click out of it, you see things go away up here. But if I click on it again, chart design comes up, and I want that. And I want to go up here to chart design, add chart element. You can see I already have axes, but I want my axis titles on there. I want primary horizontal, and then I'm going to come back and do primary vertical as well. And then all I have to do to actually change the name of those, is click on this. On my y-axis, we said we had car price. Kind of weird typing sideways, but. And my x-axis, we have city. Didn't select that city. Miles per gallon. Okay, cool. Another thing I want to add, as far as the chart element goes, is the trend line. Now, Excel calls this line of best fit trend line. It's the same thing. So, what that will do is it's going to plot that line of best fit for us. We can also actually figure out what the equation is really easily by actually clicking on the line. This little sidebar pops open. You'll see that linear is chosen as far as the trend line goes, which is what happened when we added the chart element. You can go back and change some things if you want to. You can change the look of it, change the color of your dots. You can do a bunch of different things, but you can see later on in more units, we're probably going to come back and use this for like polynomial, linear trend lines, exponential, things like that. So the only thing I really want to change once I've double clicked on that line and this format trend line has come up is that I want to display the equation on chart. And I do that, click that box, and I gotta find where they put it. There we go. I'm gonna exit out of here just so it's out of my way. And I can move that a little bit and you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to record that as my line of best fit equation. And you can see on the paper handout that you have that that's been recorded for you. I've also interpreted some of the meanings of that. So what does this mean? Well, it's in slope-intercept form. Yeah, I did record what the slope-intercept would be, which would be $34,395. But that means that that's what the price of the car, that's, you know, on average, what the price of the car would be, $34,395, if it got 0 miles per gallon to the gallon. But that's obviously not the case, and it's never going to happen. So that's why we don't have any dots up here, and really, theoretically, we don't, you know, our line isn't ever going to have a B value, but if it did, that's what it would be. Our slope, though, is negative 837.4. That's our M value. So what that's saying is that, and this is granted on average, that our rate of change is that the price of the car goes down. It's got a negative slope of $837.40 for every mile per gallon that it gets. So what does that mean in real life? If you think about it, the more expensive the car is, okay, dots up here, the less fuel economy the car gets. I know that to be true from people that I know that own more expensive cars. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that nowadays with super fuel efficient cars aren't more expensive at first. I'm not talking about like battery operated cars, but I'm talking about just more fuel efficient cars a few years ago. The more fuel efficient it got, so the better, the more miles per gallon you could drive on $1, then the cheaper the car was. That's what that means. The last thing I want to know is just actually how good is that prediction. That's our correlation coefficient. And that is going to be interpreted using this image. Remember, that number we get is going to be between -1 and 1. So to calculate that, we're going to click in a cell somewhere completely outside of our table, okay? And anytime you do some kind of a formula in here, you always start with an equal sign. And I have typed in that table in the worksheet that you have that you should be following along, what you should type in, and it's CORREL. And then if you know anything about Excel, that's telling it that you want the function of correlation. And then you start an open parentheses. Now we're going to tell it what data we want in there. There's a couple ways you can go about this. You can either click and drag, but I just want the numbers or the cell values. I don't want the title up here in it of our X variables that we wanted to calculate. So we can either click and drag, or if you're not good at clicking and dragging like me, because I don't have my mouse working right now, so I click the top one, which is the cell D2, and that you should see actually will end up in that little set of parentheses, and now it's highlighted blue. And then I just scroll all the way down. I'm not highlighting anything right now, but if I keep that top D2 highlighted and hit shift and then the bottom, it automatically populates down to D206. So it highlights that in blue. Then I want to put a comma that tells me, if I go back to what that little box was up here we started typing in, that's saying, all right, that's the set that we want. So we're saying from cell D2 to D206 is our first set of data. Okay, and then our second, we want the price of all those cars. And so we have to go back up to, now we're doing H2. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go scroll down. H2 is still highlighted. Now it's in red. Shift down to 206. I need to end that. Alright, here I am. I need to end that just by putting my end parenthesis and then enter. If you did it correctly, a number will show up. There's no spaces involved in any of that. You can like manually type it in if you want to type in just the code that I've got in that handout, that's fine. But this is telling us our correlation coefficient. Okay, so what that's saying is, if I go back here and I've got this typed up in my interpretation, is that it's a negative 0.68, I rounded to negative 0.686. So it's actually kind of like right here, right? It is strong, but it's not super strong, right? It's actually kind of closer to the negative 0.5 than it is the negative 1. It's still closer to negative 1 than it is 0, so that's good. And that's reinforcing what we knew about the slope. That is, one is increasing, the other decreases. Okay, that's why the number's negative. The strength is telling us it's strong. It's not perfect though. Our points aren't exactly on top of it. Remember, if it was exactly -1 or +1, that means our points would go through every single, or our line would go through every single point in our data set. The further away it is and the closer it is to 0, the further away those points are from that actual line. Okay, so I've got all that interpretation here. It's going to be your turn now. You've got to come back to that data set and pick something other than miles per gallon to interpret. So if you think there'll be a relationship between engine size and car price, or maybe you want to look at, okay, well, does it have the same kind of, or maybe there's a better correlation coefficient between how many highway miles per gallon a car gets, or the cylinder number, how many cylinders a car has. So any of those other factors besides car name, that's just there for your reference if you just are interested. But go ahead, and your job now is to do the same kind of interpretation or creation of the scatter plot, line of best fit, the equation, label your axes, and find your R value. And when you do that, I want you to take a screenshot of all of this, the scatter plot, and then what you calculated for your R value, and I want you to submit that as well in this assignment in Canvas. So, alright, make sure that you let me know if you've got any questions, and happy data searching.